Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and today I'm going to talk to you about Donald Trump's speech at the United Nations General Assembly. As usual, this was a rambling speech full of praise for himself and his great achievements, and many of his achievements seem to be extremely exaggerated. But anyway, in this short take on his speech, I will try to identify what I think are 6 important takeaways from the speech. And based on that, and after that, if there are questions or comments from viewers, I will be happy to answer them. So the first takeaway that I have from Donald Trump's speech is that he seems to be very happy with his foreign policy achievements. So he bragged profusely about his achievements. Among them were the fact that he has stopped 7 wars. And I found this amazing and interesting to see that he talked about how he has stopped 7 wars when he has actually failed to stop the 2 wars that he promised he would stop within 24 hours. One is the Russia war with Ukraine, and the other is in what's happening in Gaza. And he acknowledged his failures to some extent, but also blamed others for those wars. But it was interesting to see that one of the achievements that he bragged about was from his first term, which was the Abrahamic Accords. And he also bragged about how he brought about a ceasefire or peace between Iran and Israel. I don't know what steps he took to bring about peace between Iran and Israel. Is there peace between Iran and Israel? Yes, there is no immediate conflict that is going on, but the chances of Netanyahu bombing Iran is always there. Donald Trump himself has violated the sovereignty of Iran and bombed its nuclear facilities. So I'm not very sure as to how he can claim that he has brought about a ceasefire between Iran and, in fact, new sanctions are being imposed on Iran even as we speak by Europeans, and probably the United States too will join them. But it was interesting that he had nothing to say about Israel's attacks on Qatar. And even though he talked a lot about the Abrahamic Accords, he failed to explain to us as to why he does not consider the Abrahamic Accords as complete failure, because rather than bringing peace to the Middle East, we see extensive wars. Israel has attacked about 7 countries in the region in the just past few months, and since October 7, there has been a genocide that is going on in Gaza. If these are the fruits of Abrahamic Accords, then I would consider them one of the most, shall we say, horrible achievements. It is hardly an achievement. It is a source of great predicament and tragedy to the region. If there is a connection between what's going on right now in Gaza. There is a lot of us who felt that one of the reasons why Hamas did what it did on October 7 was to prevent the extension of Abrahamic Accords to include Saudi Arabia, which was moving very fast to normalize relations with Israel in 2023. So I mean, clearly Donald Trump's analysis of world politics is quite superficial. They seem to be designed only for the purpose of praising himself. There was another interesting observation that I wanted to make with this. So this would be actually 7 takeaways. Is there was not much talk about the Indo-Pacific at all in this speech. It appears that Donald Trump really does not care about Indo-Pacific. The only 2 regions about which he talked, one was basically Europe, and the other was the Middle East. So the accusations that were being made about Joe Biden taking his eye off Indo-Pacific region and getting distracted by European security as a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and also getting distracted by what was going on in the Middle East, and completely taking the eye off what was going on in Asia, giving China a huge advantage to continue to develop and progress and grow and increase its influence not only in Asia but in the rest of the world, while America remains bogged down in the Middle East and Eurasia. So that was an interesting to note that Donald Trump forgot his own grand strategy, which was the Indo-Pacific. The very concept of Indo-Pacific from a pivot to Asia was something that was articulated in Donald Trump's national security strategy in his first term. My second observation was his diatribe against immigration. And in that, he basically said that the European countries were just going down the tube, that they had been completely destroyed by unchecked migration. He was not making any distinction between legal or illegal migration. He was just attacking migration. And he said basically that these wonderful countries of the free world are being now completely destroyed. They have become places like hell. And he particularly isolated or talked about London as unrecognizable. And so I guess it's like hell, apparently. Especially because Sadiq Khan is the mayor of this. So there is not so subtle racism and xenophobia in his condemnation of immigration and its impact on Western societies. He bragged about how he has made sure that the U.S. is now safe from illegal migration and how the U.S. border is secure. And he also said that under Joe Biden, about 25 million people came into the country. I don't know what to say of it. I did go and check after, or rather, while he was speaking, I did do some fact check, and clearly there were a lot of people who came in into the U.S. during the Biden administration, but they're clearly not more than 5 million. 5 million is also huge. It's as big as Maryland. Like we added a whole new big state in the United States with people who are undocumented. But 25 million, not really. It's like adding what Spain. I don't know. So that was a bit of an exaggeration, and the fact that Donald Trump has not deported 25 million people tells you that perhaps they are still in the United States, even though he seems to be pretty happy with the situation in the US today. But nevertheless, he did attack migration, and I am afraid that his words and his language will now be used by all right-wing parties all over the world. Right-wing parties have become very cruel, very inhuman, extremely nativistic, extremely xenophobic, super nationalist, and they are using hatred towards minorities and foreigners as a way of increasing their vote share and their seat share in their parliament. So from Germany to Great Britain, whether it's the Reform Party in England, whether it's the AfD in Germany, or other parties in France, or the MAGA crowd in the United States, they are unleashing hatred towards migrants. And increasingly, there is very little effort to distinguish between legal and illegal migrants. The third observation or takeaway from his speech was his broadside on global warming and environment. And he says that Europe essentially is becoming a terrible place because of two things. One is unchecked migration, and the other is their environmental policies. And he says, in the pursuit of protecting the environment, they are basically undermining their own economies and their own capacity to defend themselves. And so he praised this whole idea of, I guess he didn't use the words, but drill, baby, drill. And is very happy about how it brought down inflation in the United States. But basically, he called green energy a scam. He said green energy is a scam, and then he had this really funny, discussion about how America's border is finite shape, but we can't control the top, so bad atmosphere or bad air is coming across the border from other countries like China, where they are using I guess coal as a source of energy. So anyway, he basically slammed the environmental protections and the impact of the public policies with regards to environment. This is going to hurt a lot of countries from the global south who are huge victims of earthquakes, flooding, rainfall, unseasonal rainfall. I mean, in northern India as well as Pakistan have been suffering from flooding. Just a couple of months ago, the whole country was underwater in Pakistan and other places, we see earthquakes, unscheduled volcanoes. So there is a definite challenge with the environment crisis, and he's denying it again and again is surprising. It will lead to bad governance, especially countries of the global south need the support, the research, and the resources and ideas of the global north in order to pursue sustainable development strategies. So, I mean, the attacks on global warming were quite stunning. The fourth point that he made, fourth observation that I have is that he had two broadsides against India. He basically targeted India again. The absence of Prime Minister Modi is quite palpable. There was this interesting moment when he pointed to Lula, the president of Brazil, who was there listening and said that, oh, I like him a lot. I just met him. We are going to have a meeting next week. But I don't like his policies and I don't like what Brazil is becoming. And I think it is just to avoid such a moment that Prime Minister Modi probably is absent from the UN General Assembly. Donald Trump could have pointed out, said, oh, he's a great friend of mine. He's a great chap, but I don't like him. He is basically a Maharaja of tariffs. And he could have made some derogatory comments about India or Modi himself. So Modi was missing in action. But he said two things about India which should continue to worry India, because as of now, as we speak today, India's Minister of Commerce, Piyush Goyal, is here in Washington, D.C., negotiating a bilateral trade agreement in the shadow of Donald Trump raising H-1B fees to $100,000, which many people feel will break the back of India's IT industry. And in some people have said it is going to destroy the bridge between the US and India. Anyway, so one blow that he rained was he blamed India and China for sustaining this horrible war between Russia and Ukraine, and he says 5,000 to 7,000 young people are dying every week, every week or every month, and so he blamed India and China, and he says if they were not buying Russian oil, they are sustaining the Russian economy, and therefore they are prolonging the war. They squarely blamed India and China for that. He also was quite scathingly critical of NATO countries, saying that I've never seen a situation like this where you are sustaining the very economy against which you are campaigning. So that's a point that I take it, that yes, there are NATO countries who are buying Russian oil and energy, basically Hungary, Slovakia, and Turkey. And then they want other countries and putting pressure on countries like India. And so India's response was quite natural, that this is unfair and unjust to demand that we should stop buying oil when European countries are buying, and even the United States is buying a little bit of rare earth material from Russia. But there's a slight difference. I just wanted Indians to know that one of the reasons why they are especially angry with India is because India is profiteering from it. So what India is doing is buying cheap Russian oil and then exporting it back to other countries, to the great extent that Ambanis have made over $16 billion of profit from refining and selling Russian oil. So unlike Hungary and other European countries, which are doing that because they need that energy, but they're not buying and trying to profiting from war. That's the difference which Indian commentators and Indian government has not yet acknowledged at all, that they are profiteering. They keep saying that we are a poor country and we are buying the cheapest energy that is available to us for domestic consumption. But if you also notice that there has been no decrease in price of petroleum in India since the war started. So whatever discounts Russia is extending to India, India is not extending that discounts to its consumers. That discount is again going to these large private refineries and government refineries, which are profiteering from that. So that's something that people in India need to understand. So my fifth takeaway is that this is not a multipolar world. This whole talk that this is a multipolar world is rubbish. Donald Trump is forcing his will on the world. He's using tariffs. He's using his security umbrella. And what is interesting is, with the rise of China, with the belligerence of Russia, with what Iran did to Israel, all of these countries have panicked. Without United States, Israel would not have been there. Every time Iran attacked the US, and with US pressure, its allies, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and France, not France so much, but UK, defended Israel. If the United States was not eager to defend Israel, these countries would not have done so. These countries even interact with Israel and protect Israel, not for Israel, but to appease the United States. So the constant defense of Israel with weapons, with money, the diplomatic. I mean, if anything, in the last 2 years, Israel would have realized how completely indispensable the US is to Israel's existence. Without US, Israel will not exist. And the same is happening with Europeans. They have realized even more. So without the United States, they can't defend themselves against Russia. Without the US. And so much for multipolarity, so much for strategic autonomy that people, there is no such thing. The moment Donald Trump turned against India, India ran into the arms of China and forgot what happened during Operation Sindoor. So this is not a multipolar world. And just watching Donald Trump give his speech, it was very clear that anybody who talks about a multipolar world is essentially, that's wishful thinking. They're dreaming out aloud. So it's a tragedy for the world that at a time when the world really recognizes how badly it needs the United States and U.S. markets and U.S. security, etc. It's at that moment that Donald Trump is essentially turning his back to globalism and pushing for an America first foreign policy. So that's my fifth takeaway, and my last takeaway is about Gaza. Donald Trump acknowledged that he was failed to bring about ceasefire, and he said we have to bring about ceasefire. But I mean, he spoke about that as if I don't know what to say. He talked about how it was important to get all the 20 hostages back, and I agree with him that those poor 20 souls have suffered a lot, and their families have suffered a lot. There's no doubt about it. But the complete lack of empathy, complete lack of recognition of the suffering of Gazans, the thousands and thousands and thousands of women and children who have died as a result of bombing. They're constantly being moved around. They're being starved to death. There is nothing standing in Gaza. Israel, with the weapons provided by Western countries, Canada, UK, the United States, and Germany, and Italy, has completely destroyed an entire community, a province. There's nothing standing in Gaza. He has absolutely no empathy, no sympathy. The only other person are the Indians who support Modi, who are immune to the sufferings of the Palestinians. They are immune to the death of children. Thousands upon thousands of children have been bombed and killed. Okay, dying is good, but what about those who have been maimed? People who have been blinded, people who have lost their limbs, people who have been injured. It's unbelievable, the suffering of Gaza, and Donald Trump didn't have one sentence. He spoke at length about how he had bid to get a contract to refurbish the UN building and how he was going to put marble floorings and how he did not get that. And he had time to talk about that, but he didn't have a single sentence to talk about the suffering of the people of Gaza. To me, that is the worst part of the entire speech. Yes, he's having a multilateral meeting with Muslim countries. I think it is today. He's meeting with Pakistan, he's meeting with Turkey, he's meeting with Qatar, he's meeting with Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Jordan to do something about it. And I think all he's going to do is please help Israel and please support Israel and please get the hostages free. I don't think he's going to express any concern for Gaza. And then, of course, he'll try to put pressure on Saudi Arabia also to join the Abrahamic Accords. He had some nice things to say about Arabs, but he had nothing to say about how he abandoned Qatar in its need. He was not a friend in need for Qatar. The US has a military agreement with Qatar. It has a military base in Qatar with 10,000 soldiers. And when Israel attacked Qatar, Donald Trump did not stop Israel, did not defend Qatar, and did not do anything to punish Israel. So as far as the Qataris are concerned, I'm sure that I don't think any Arab country should trust the United States anywhere ever again, because it is not going to live up to its promises to secure. Because the U.S. doesn't have strategic autonomy in the Middle East. Only Netanyahu dictates what Israeli policies and what American policies will be in the region. And if you would be a fool to think otherwise. If anybody thinks that any American president can make a foreign policy decision in the Middle East which disagrees with Netanyahu, they are fools. This country's foreign policy is controlled by the Israeli lobby as well as billionaires who basically bankroll both the parties. So these are the six observations I wanted to make. Donald Trump did also attack the United Nations as incompetent and incapable, without acknowledging that on many occasions where the United Nations has been rendered useless, it is primarily because of the United States and its veto power. And also the veto powers of Russia, China, Great Britain, and France don't often use them because the US uses it on their behalf. But nevertheless, the only time the UN does not act effectively is when the interests of the P5 are at stake. And because the United States is a global power with global interests, often the United States interests are always the ones that inhibit the capacity of the UN. And for the past 20 years, the United States has not been an ally of the UN. Rather, it has been an obstructionist role it has played. So his criticism of the United Nations was quite petty, also saying that, oh, I did the Abrahamic Accords, and why didn't you even call me and thank me? Well, we are seeing what wonderful peace he brought in the Middle East thanks to the Abrahamic Accords. So anyway, these are my 6 takeaways about Donald Trump's speech in the UN. I will continue to study what's going on there and try to see if something meaningful comes out of the multilateral meeting with the Muslim countries. Then I will do a show on that, but otherwise I won't. So thank you for watching Conversations. Please, if you have not already subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share it with others. And if there are some interesting questions or comments, I'll be happy to answer them. Samar Pratap Singh has just become a new member of Conversations. Welcome, Samar. And yes, you can become members of Conversations, and I try always to answer all the questions that are raised by members. And I also have Zoom conferences. I'll be having one very soon in which I engage for a couple of hours actually with members, take their advice, take their suggestions, answer their questions, etc. So what does Sunny have to say? Sunny, the veto power of UN General Assembly should be suspended. No veto power, then only countries are equal. The UN General Assembly doesn't have veto power, Sunny. There are 5 countries who have veto power in the Security Council. And if you take away the veto power of the United States, the US will leave the UN. So you think US and Bhutan are equal? You think the US and Nepal are equal? You think that Maldives can do for the world what China can do for the world? Really? They're not. It is this imbalance of power which is a problem, right? And so to accommodate, to bring all these major powers which can act unilaterally in the world, we bring them into the Security Council, and therefore they have this power. I can tell you that the League of Nations, where there was no such veto power, failed. And the UN has been successful on many occasions. There are, like, I don't want to go through it, just go and Google a list of places where UN has been successful, and its allied agencies like World Health Organization, etc., have done a tremendous job in many other places. During COVID, for example, in distribution of vaccines, in elimination of smallpox, the World Health Organization did some fantastic work. UNICEF does lots of great work. So the UN agencies do a lot of good work. It's on the big conflicts where the main powers are involved that the UN cannot do. Even in India, Pakistan, India doesn't allow the UN to come in there. It says this is a bilateral matter. So yes, the UN fails when major powers push it out. Uh, Yes, Biswas, I think so. I think the relationship has been soured significantly, and it'll be a long time before it can be repaired. And I think it could potentially get worse if the bilateral trade agreement does not come through. I was just trying to find out about student visa, and I think 50% drop in Indian students coming to the United States this year. And with the H1B, I think that will also create some issues. So yes, I think this relationship is going down the tube. I don't know. I don't know why people listen to him. And there's a lot of arrogance among the far right in India because they are very popular at home, and they say whatever they want to say, and often it's not based in fact. Anyway, so thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. There are a couple of issues that I will be talking about. Apparently, the US is giving Australia a very tough time, and I want to talk about that. I will probably do that in a few hours. So take care. Thank you for watching. I'm your host, Muqtadar Khan. Bye.